As a business owner, navigating a relationship with an unsupportive partner is stressful. Let's talk about that. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Edgy Entrepreneur Podcast. This season 2 is all about relationships, and for this season, we believe that if you really want to become an influential leader in your workplace, your community, and within your family, you need to learn the art of mastering your relationships. So this is episode 3, and today we have kind of a unique topic, and this one's going to go deep for a lot of you guys. So before we introduce the topic, let me have my illustrious co-host introduce herself, and then we'll step into this thing.
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Coach Oriana. I'm a personal performance and executive coach and an author and speaker.
Beautifully said. And I am Daniel Tribby. I am also a coach for those in the healthcare space. I am an author, speaker, and all things that everyone should care deeply about. So let's go into this topic. I think this is a good one today because a lot of people struggle with this and this idea of what do you do when you have an unsupportive partner, intimate partner, when you are a business owner or an entrepreneur, whatever the term is that you choose to use to describe yourself. Like that can be a challenging situation. Right? I'm a business owner. I have my hands in 3 different businesses, but I may not have a partner, a wife or a significant other, however you want to describe that, that supports my endeavors or understands my endeavors. So we're going to navigate this a little bit today and talk about how you can better help your partner understand where you are in your business growth and also how they can help you and be supportive. And I think you're going to be surprised at what you find out here. So Coach, lead us into this thing.
Just from our personal experience as coaches, working with clients who are business owners and entrepreneurs, we do come with a unique and multidimensional perspective. And what I mean by that is that we see maybe some of the stuff behind the curtain that those of you who are entrepreneurs out there and who are listening, you might have experienced, but you might not have been able to actually like put your finger on it and really identify like this is the thing that's happening. Or you might feel really alone, like I must be the only one who's having this experience or this problem.
Yes, you are the only one.
And in reality, you know, we want to bring first to the attention, I think it's important for us to say from our perspective as 2 people who talk to individuals in these circumstances on a regular basis, 1, you're not alone, but 2, there's some really common trends that are showing up for entrepreneurs, business owners who are dating or in intimate partnerships. A lot of the struggles that I'm seeing that they're experiencing are the same or very similar across the board. So we're going to help you understand, navigate, and hopefully, you know, expose you to some opportunities to where you can start stepping into resolution of these types of conflicts or misunderstandings in your relationships, how you can start closing some of the gaps, right? And, you know, this is the thing about this perspective and what I find about the perspectives of a lot of individuals that you'll hear in the marketplace that are talking about relationships. A lot of that perspective and kind of like just the default perspective that a lot of people fall into is my partner needs to change. My partner is the one that's doing something wrong or that needs to be doing something different, right? And I just, before we even get into this conversation that I, again, want to mention is going to come at you from a little bit of a different perspective, I want to invite you into the opportunity to consider that all roads lead back home, right? And when I say home, I mean you, and I mean this, right?
Absolutely.
It's heart, right? All roads come back into yourself.
Right.
So let's talk about how the experience shows up and really what we've determined are like the symptoms to the real problem, right? This is what people are actually coming to us and saying, this is what's going on in my life, right? Or they're, you know, you might have actually sat down with your friends or your family or somebody you trust and actually said one of these things out loud. But what are some of the symptoms that are showing up that you've noticed?
Revenue is one, right? Money for my household, which challenges my safety as a significant other, right? Or as a spouse. So if I am if I'm the let's call it the breadwinner, since that's a common term, and I'm used to bringing in 100,000 into the household from my job, and I now switch to become a business owner, and I'm no longer bringing in 100,000 because I have to build this business. So maybe I'm bringing something like 25,000 in, and my spouse is now the primary revenue generator, right? Well, we don't have the same funds coming in, and so there are a lot of times there's a safety issue there, right? So my spouse doesn't feel as safe or as comfortable in their environment because the amount of money coming into the household has changed. And that can obviously be a source of an argument, right? Well, when are you going to start making more money so that we can get back to, not penny pinching and not rolling pennies for gas, on the weekends? So those kinds of things, that's a definite symptom of this particular issue.
And in the moment, it feels very real, right? Like your spouse legitimately is feeling threatened, and their nervous system is becoming activated as a result. And the way that they're showing up, most likely with you, because they're coming from a place of feeling insecure, threatened, and unsafe, and from nervous system activation, they're probably not showing up as their best self in those moments, right? I would say another one is that your spouse feels like they're placed secondary to your business, right? You don't have time for me anymore. You don't have time for us anymore. We don't do the things that we used to do together. Right, your presence in our household is missing, right? So that's another common symptom.
When you've become used to having someone around a certain amount of time and then they're not because of a different obligation, there's that same, I don't feel, maybe not necessarily as safe, but maybe I don't have the opportunity to be heard as much or seen as much or understood as much. And so again, that can cause some friction, especially if you have children in this atmosphere, right? And so what you're dealing with there is the opportunity cost, right? I have to spend so much time building my business, and now I have to give up time with those who I love and I care about spending that time with. But I challenge you to think, is that really the case? Do you really have to do that? So it's a question of values, and what you actually believe is part of your value system.
It's also a question of habits and how you're utilizing your time. It's a question of mindset, right? There's so much that goes into these symptoms. It's very easy to just look at the symptom and say, they are the issue, right? Another one is my spouse is unsure how to support my mission. They're unwilling.
So those of us who have caught the entrepreneurial bug have often done so because we got so frustrated being an employee in a system that drove us crazy, right? We didn't want to work for a certain person because our feelings of how we should deliver that service is vastly different than how it was delivered. Or we didn't appreciate the way we were treated as employees. So we're like, you know what? We're going to do this on our own. Screw you guys. I'm off, right? So the Jerry Maguire thing, right? Who's coming with me? And so they go and they create this business. And they have this vision and this mission about what they want to deliver. But oftentimes what happens is they're not sharing that with their significant other, right? And so we create this vision in our brains about what we want to deliver as an entrepreneur, but then we forget that there's a very important significant other that's part of our lives that probably needs to know what that vision or that mission is.
When they don't know, this is the other symptom that shows up, right? My spouse doesn't help. My spouse doesn't support me. My spouse doesn't help me out when I asked for it, right? And a lot of times, right, again, going back to yourself, have you made your mission clear? Have you made the task clear?
Or you get the argument, right? Oh, you want to hear what happened in this house today with the kids while you were running your new business? Right now there becomes this competitive atmosphere.
Sure. How about your spouse is triggering you and mirroring back at you your own lack of clarity and certainty?
Kind of a need for significance, right? In a certain way. Like I need to feel significant in what I'm doing as an entrepreneur, right? And so when I don't have that significance mirrored back at me from my spouse, that actually means there's been a lack of my own certainty that I've shown to my spouse, right? So a lot of people need significance to feel important.
If you are uncertain, insecure, unsure, lacking clarity within yourself about your your mission or your path
direction.
or your purpose, the direction that you're going in, what you're doing, why you're doing it as a business owner, and then you go to your partner to want them to give you all of those things, they're not going to be able to do that. And it's not their role to do that.
Right.
You know, so they're going to just mirror right back at you your own lack of understanding, clarity, security, right? Vision, mission, all of that. And that's not going to feel good, right? Subconsciously, what that really should show you is it should create an awareness for you like, oh, wait, I don't have all the puzzle pieces. But what you're actually doing is going to your partner and saying, hey, will you build this puzzle for me? Rather than you getting into meaningful, consistent action yourself and then inviting your partner into it if they should want to make a contribution.
And this just all leads to, I don't want to take my own accountability if something fails. I want to blame somebody else for not showing up powerfully, right?
You didn't believe in me, so that's why I never took action.
Exactly.
You know? And it's like, well, you know, you also, you know, if that's the case, if you're blaming in any way, you know, and if you're waiting for someone else to mentally or emotionally make a shift before you get into action and before you mentally and emotionally make your own shift, listen to that. What I'm actually saying is that you're asking somebody to do something that you are unwilling to do for yourself and for your business mission and purpose. So you want them to do it first before you get into action. Mm-hmm. And what you're really doing is just creating a subconscious reason that you can avoid and that you can continue to play small.
And it's really easy to externally look at somebody else and blame them for your lack of success versus looking internally at yourself and saying, well, I played small. I was shopping on the mental clearance rack. That's why I ended up in this particular space. Now, the other side of that happens is that if you don't feel the support and you choose to say, okay, well, I'm not getting support, so I'm just going to take this all on myself, right? Which is something that I did. You know, I felt lack of support at one point. And so I just said, well, the hell with you then. I'm just going to put my attention and my drive and my ambition into this because I know I can. And so there is your emotional shutdown, right? Mm-hmm. So I am going to drive to be an author. I'm going to drive to be a coach. I'm going to drive to do this new podcast. I'm going to have the ambition to succeed because I know there's something more out there for me, and I'm not going to be a victim of my circumstances. I'm going to be the creator of my life, right? That was my attitude, because I didn't feel I got that support, right? So that's an emotional shutdown. That's like, all right, well, you're not going to support me, so I'm out.
You know, ideally in any relationship, right, there is much less combativeness. There is much more cooperation. There's much more buy-in. There is much more support, right? And don't get me wrong, we're not saying that it's not nice to have a supportive partner, that it isn't a great feeling, that it isn't something that you should desire. Mm-hmm. It's nice and it's okay to want that. Right. But the moment that you tell yourself that you need that, right, and you start looking to your partner for what you so-called need in a way that is keeping you from giving yourself what you need, you're in trouble. You're in trouble because you effectively are going to be, you effectively place your partner in the position to become the villain in your life. Right. You know, and as soon as you make somebody a villain, you become a victim. And for you to remain a victim, you have to tell yourself a story. And that story sounds a little bit like, because of you, I can't. Right? And when you tell that story, you effectively disempower yourself from being able to be not only a co-creator in your life and relationship, but you disempower yourself from being the primary creator in your own life because you are giving up ownership and personal responsibility over yourself. And that is the only place that creation and freedom exist, period.
Yeah. Need is one of those naughty buzzwords for us, right? They go in the same bucket with if and try, right? And there's a couple more, but need is a pretty large buzzword. What do you actually need? Ask yourself that. What is it that you actually need? Meaning, if I don't have this, then I will die, right? Because your body can go 5-6 days without water and almost 2 weeks without food, right? So tell me what it is that you actually need versus what it is that you want or that you desire, right? They're two very different things. And like you mentioned very well, was that it's okay to want that support. But when you're relying on it, it's becoming a crutch for your emotional support or some other satisfaction that is egotistical in its nature.
Once you start going into the blame game, you become a victim, your partner becomes a villain. For one of the biggest things that happens, particularly in relationships with business owners and entrepreneurs, is that it kills your connection and intimacy. Mm-hmm. It is very hard to be sexually intimate with your partner at night when you are having these types of conflicts during the day, right? Let's just face it. And there will become a time where you just become emotionally disconnected enough that you don't want to connect intimately anymore, right? Once you get emotionally disconnected, the physical desire to connect disappears shortly thereafter, right? So this is very real because a lot of people start to assume that because, I don't feel an emotional connection, we don't have a physical connection anymore, then divorce or separation is the only logical next step, but they haven't done the thing that we're going to talk about doing now, right? Which is step into full total ownership and personal responsibility, right? Which this is a place that I try to come from. I attempt to come from. I really make a mindful attempt, and sometimes I fail, like anybody else, but I do make a mindful attempt to come from a place of personal responsibility any single time that I feel an emotional conflict within myself, right? Like the first thing I'm asking myself is, what am I doing wrong?
Right.
Where's the disconnect inside of me? What's the story I'm telling myself that's creating suffering inside of me, right? Because I have to tell myself a suffering story in order for somebody else's actions to hurt me. Yeah. And what that means is that I have to look at them and their actions, and I have to give what they're doing or saying a meaning that's negative about myself. And then once I experience that meaning, right, once that ricochets in my spirit, it hurts. So who's really hurting me or them?
What you say or what other people say they're responsible for, but the meaning you give it or the understanding you apply to it is on you, right? So this is something that we really want to drive home for you guys, is that just because you've created a story in your head of your understanding of a situation does not necessarily mean that is what's happening. Right? It may not be the reality of the situation. It's just the box you've created that you decided to put yourself into, right? And there is no fucking box other than the one that you constructed. So, and when it comes to a relationship dynamic here, and you're taking what your partner says and creating your own story out of it, usually that comes from a basis of some fear base, right? Something that you have experienced in your past that's already there. Yeah. And so now you have this protection mechanism. So, for me, mine is fear-based in abandonment due to an experience with my father, right? So that is where mine comes from. So as soon as people start to reject me, my story is, well, they're going to abandon me. They don't believe in me. They don't care about me. So before they can actually do that, I need to shut myself off emotionally from them so they can't hurt me. And so ask yourself as a listener, what is the experience that you've had that's putting you in anxiety or in fear, right? And keep asking yourself, what am I really afraid of? What am I really afraid of? Why do I keep going down this path? And I think you're going to find a pattern that this has happened to you several times before in other situations as well.
First off, I want to say thank you for sharing that, because it's incredibly descriptive of self-awareness on your part, and your willingness to share is very vulnerable. And I appreciate that, because I think that hearing a real world example for people really hits home. What we're talking about are the reasons that you or people end up in these situations. Right? In the situation where, like the couples that I work with, where it's like, maybe we really should get a divorce, right? And it's like, okay, hold on. Like in most cases, people don't actually want to get a divorce. They just want the circumstances to change.
Right.
So let's actually assess whether or not these circumstances can be changed before you go and pull that trigger that's going to have a huge domino effect, not only on yourselves, your finances, your assets, but also your kids and all of your extended family, right? Another example could be you don't know how to express your needs, right? You don't know how to verbalize what you need. There's some level of disconnect within the self that it makes it very difficult to actually be able to come to terms, even within yourself, to be able to say, this is what I need, and what is it out of what I need that I can actually go to my partner and request? Because most people are under the mental guise that they need it, right? So they're already triggered. So that's so fine. Take it from that perspective. Make a list of what it is that you think that you need. And then really look at that list and determine what are needs and what are wants.
Which is a very undervalued skill, negotiation. Very undervalued skill. We're not talking negotiation. If you missed the episode before this on compromise and synergy, go back and listen to it, because that is purely negotiation skill related, right? Synergy is what you're aiming for, not compromise, okay? But let's break this down a little bit too. As a business owner, I have certain desires and wants from my partner, right? There's certain things that I desire to receive from them, but there's also certain things that they're going to desire to receive from you. So here's the key. You're not going to be heard until they feel heard. So again, this all goes back on you. If you're the one saying, I want, I gotta have, I desire, I need, you're not doing this, and you're pointing the finger at the other person, using them as a scapegoat, you need to stop, ask them how they're feeling, where they're at, get their perspective, because this is going to come down to the simple fact that there is no alignment in the vision of the relationship.
The relationship vision is lacking. Maybe there isn't one. Maybe there isn't even an understanding that you should have one. But you should have, not only should your business have a vision, right? Meaning you have a vision for your business, but your relationship needs to have a vision, and you need to have a vision for your life together.
Yes.
And if you've never taken the time to actually develop a vision and to do that collaboratively with your partner, they're going to have a really hard time buying in to whatever it is that you want them to step into, really from a perspective of lacking understanding,
yeah,
right?
You're asking me to take a blind walk with you and not knowing where we're going. Or, hey, let's go on a road trip. I have no idea how long it's going to take us to get there, or where exactly we're going to get in the car and we're going to drive.
Just get in the car. I promise. Trust me. We're going to do this, right? And, that there's part of that I want to acknowledge can be really exciting and can be really fun and adventurous, right?
Yeah, the need for variety is real.
It feels spontaneous and fun, and this is such a good time, and I can't wait to see what you create or what we can create together. And also, there comes a time where that gets intolerable, right, especially within the context of a long-term relationship, and it's almost immediately intolerable within the context where children exist.
Variety is a very good thing to have in your relationship. Variety of extracurriculars, if you will, right? Let's go paddleboarding. Let's go kayaking. Let's go skydiving. Let's go scuba diving. Let's go travel to a different place every month. That's good variety, all right? So, but when you have the variety in a shared mission or vision for your business or your relationship, you're going to have problems, right? So the value of variety is a good thing to have. Like, I value variety in my life, right? Of 6 human quote unquote needs, variety and uncertainty is one of them. It's a big one, right? People want to have variety in their life. Now, some people take variety to a very, large extreme, which, hey, if it works for you, go for it. But when it comes down to having a shared vision and shared mission, you've got to hone in on this, right? There's this separation. Let's tackle this work vision thing first, right? And then we'll go into the relationship vision. But from a work vision standpoint, you cannot, and I worked with a lot of healthcare providers, and they try to separate their work life from their home life. This is a mistake. You cannot be two different people. It will pull you apart.
Especially if you're in business together. You can't be a couple, business partners during the day and an actual romantic couple later on after 5.
It's difficult to do. You have to, and I'm not saying you should take work home with you every day, but what I'm telling you is that you need to be able to share what's happening with you. If you're the sole business owner and your spouse or partner is not a business owner, you cannot separate them from each other. You need to share your day with them, right? Just the same way if you were an employee somewhere and they were an employee somewhere, you would come home and talk about each other's coworkers and bosses and this person sucks but this person was great, this situation was awesome. You still need to have that connection. It can't totally, take over your evenings in your romantic life, but you need to share in that. What's going on? What's happening in your business? You need to be able to share that vision, and you need to be able to share the mission, share the ins and outs, the pluses and the minuses. Here's the other side. And ladies, I'm going to talk to you for a second. Men hate to be coached by their significant others. So if your man is a business owner, entrepreneur, comes home and is venting or just sharing with you about the day, and you feel the inclination to coach him and tell him everything that he should or shouldn't be doing, stop. It doesn't work, and we will not listen to you. All that does is build up resentment. So, Coach, you got anything about that pairing, like you can't, the separation of work and home life?
I mean, what we're talking about is an integrated life. This idea, this is why work-life balance is a myth, is because integrated life is the truth, right? That you cannot be a different person in every aspect of your life, and you can't equally balance every single thing that you have in your personal ecosystem. Not everything is going to be exactly the same percentage of time and energy for you. It's just not possible. There are seasons where you're going to be more heavily entrenched in your business and less in your relationship and kids, and that's something that you want to talk to your spouse about in advance and set proper expectations. There are going to be other seasons where, the opposite is true, where you got to spend a lot of attention on your health because you might be struggling with your health and well-being, and you got to pull away from your business. And that's something that you got to discuss with your team and create buy-in from them, right? The romantic partnership space is the only area where I see people wanting somebody else to step into blind followership. Right? Because in your business context, if you're working with clients, if you're working with investors, if you are doing anything else in life, including when you are the consumer of something, you want to be crystal clear on who is leading this train. What am I going to get? Right? What are going to be my end results? What's possible? What's this experience going to be like? What's it going to feel like? Am I going to get what I desire out of it? Right? And that is the expectation that your clients, your investors place on you, right? They need clarity on all of these things before they financially invest, and you're willing to give them all of that clarity, talk about the mission, the vision, why you give a shit and why they should too. All of a sudden, with your spouse, you want them to just put a blindfold on and follow you and give you buy-in no matter what. Even though you don't talk about your business or what's going on in your day, you don't talk about how you're spending your time or energy, you don't talk about a future vision or a relationship, and you're not attempting to integrate your business life and relationship. I'll speak from a woman's perspective.
Please.
If that is the kind of leadership that you as a man are bringing into your relationship, particularly with a feminine woman, she is going to begin to feel unsafe, and rightfully so. And I'll tell you what happens when women start to feel unsafe.
They go look for places to feel safe.
Well, that's within ourselves.
Yeah.
We withdraw emotionally, but most importantly, women masculinize. Everybody has a masculine and a feminine energy. So a woman will start to become more masculine in her energy, more directive, taking more leadership, taking a different type of role than the feminine role in the relationship. Why? Because she's losing her sense of safety, security, and trust, because you are not showing up in a powerful stand of leadership with her. And so her inner masculine, this is all subconscious, her inner masculine is going to say, we're unsafe, I got to take charge.
Right.
And that's what she's going to start doing. And that's why she's going to show up and coach you when you come home with problems.
As a guy, you're going to resent that, right? Because you're going to feel like you're being criticized. You're going to say the thing, well, she doesn't understand what I'm going through.
She doesn't trust me.
And then, now you guys are going to have split differences because you're like two dudes, right? And there is no fighting having a beer afterwards, right? That's what two men can do. But when it comes to female energy, when it comes to a woman showing up in masculine energy and a male showing up in masculine energy, you're going to butt heads.
You are going to butt heads, and you're going to kill polarity, and that's why people stop having sex,
right?
And experiencing intimacy, So like I said, I mentioned not setting expectations, but it's also not having ground rules, not setting clear roles and responsibilities.
True.
Right? I see this a lot where the male partner, the husband, is a business owner and the female partner is a homemaker. Her responsibility is to care for the home and the children. Her responsibility is to remove obstacles from the man and to create an environment that he can come home to where he can experience peace of mind. But he insists on pulling her into the business world.
Yep.
I need you to support me in business. No, you don't. You need to go get that need met elsewhere if your wife wants to stay home and fulfill her role as a wife and mother.
Yeah, find a tribe of other business owners that you can relate to that can help you troubleshoot issues, right? This is a big thing, a community around you, right? People venture off into this business ownership path, but then they try to keep doing the same things and thinking the same way and hang out with the same people, and then wonder why those people don't understand them anymore, right? It's because they're not, you're on two different wavelengths at this point. I'm telling you to abandon those people, but understand that what once was your support system when you were an employee is going to be a different support system as a business owner, and you need to seek that out, right? So let's address this other part of missions and visions, right? We talked about the business side of it and not separating business from home, but we also need to talk about how you construct a vision for your relationship, right? Because this is an important item in avoiding this conflict, right? Or feeling like you have the unsupportive spouse. When you start to become on equal grounds, right? So if you haven't established the fact that I have certain values and she has certain values and those values coincide well together, we can create a vision at that point. But some people have totally conflicting values as individuals, right? Like Coach, you and I may have very different values when it comes to time we spend with children and how we view that, right? If that's the case, you have a hard time constructing a vision around what we believe to be true about spending time with our kids, okay? Versus... Right, or how you spend money, in relation to your kids, or how you spend money for household items, or whatever it may be. So you need to sit down with your significant other and really dive into what you value for the certain aspects of your life, and only then can you create a vision together.
Agree.
Right? So this is really, really important. If you haven't done this, you are causing friction, right? You are depolarizing. Okay, so you have to come to some sort of place where you have decided that, hey, our values are in alignment, this is how we're going to move forward, or our values are not in alignment, and this is how we're going to move forward.
If you are not seeking values alignment with your dating partners, then you probably are not clear on what your values are. And if you're not clear on what your values are, honestly, you do not need to be dating. You should not be dating.
It's true.
Because you're not capable of having a clear conversation with somebody to say, this is what's important to me. That's what a value means. These are things that I value. This is how I spend my time and energy and resources on the things that I value because they're important to me. So if you can't have that conversation to be able to assess whether or not somebody's going to be a good dating partner, you really need to get clear on those things before you start dating. Now, if you are clear on those things and you have that conversation and you start to date with somebody that has made it clear to you that their value system is different than the one that you're presenting, you should go into that with the expectation that there's going to be a significant amount of conflict. Yeah. If you go into it with the expectation of anything else, like, oh, I'll change them, you are in trouble. You will not change them. You will always continue to have conflicts with this person. And that's where we start to get into the scenarios where you really do have an unsupportive partner, right? Not just what feels unsupportive because you are not showing up. You have a partner that's unsupportive because you chose someone who's misaligned with your value system. So I encourage you, to with compassion and respect, reject anyone and everyone who shows up in your world and is out of values alignment. It doesn't matter if they're dating, friendship, business partner, or whatever it is.
Or what I see a lot of the times is that their values are a collection of the shit that other people have told them.
Yeah, well, they just say what sounds good in terms of a value system, but they don't actually live those values. I'm talking about a value system that you actually consciously work hard to live, right? And I've talked about that in other podcast episodes. We have discussed values, I think, several times now, our own personal value systems, and how it's, if you have a true value system, you actually sometimes struggle to live up to that. And you're actually making significant assessments that go, whoa, right. I don't really want to say no to this, but for me to stay in alignment with my value system, I have to.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what that means, right? So what are some of the limiting beliefs that you've seen that show up for people who end up in these scenarios?
I think a lot of it is, or one major one that I see a lot is that, I have to do this on my own, right? That one shows up a lot. Or the opposite of, I can't do this on my own, right? Yeah. So there's two sides of the same coin, essentially, right? So if I believe that I can't do this on my own, then I'm going to be self-reliant on somebody who's close to me, which typically puts a lot of pressure on the spouse. Again, that's a you thing, not a spouse thing. So you've got to reevaluate that. Believe you can do it on your own, then you're going to emotionally shut down for everybody else, right? So you've got to be really, really aware of these two limiting beliefs. And I'll be 1,000% honest with you. You cannot do it on your own. You will need support, but you need support from people who have been where you want to go when it comes to business, not somebody who's emotionally supporting you at home solely, right? Like that doesn't work. If you want support in building your business, go find people who have done that and can support you. I believe too that, the right partner, the right life partner for you is going to want to give to you, right? They're going to want to support you. They're going to want to see you achieve, and then you're going to do the same thing. You're going to want to give to them.
Because they benefit from your achievements too.
Exactly. And this is what people don't understand. You don't get into relationships to get. If you're looking to get into some sort of relationships, whether it's a marriage or a dating or a girlfriend-boyfriend situation, to get something, you're not ready for a relationship. Relationships are about giving something. Giving. So you give to the other person gives to you. So if you have this idea that you need somebody else's support to do something, you need to reevaluate the values again. Right? Because you shouldn't need it. They should want to automatically give you support and say, hey, what's the best way that I can support you? And you need to adequately tell them exactly what it is they can do to help you.
Yeah. This is the thing, Coach, and what I really want people to understand is that, when people are stuck in these limiting beliefs, there's an unconscious payoff to being in these belief systems, to hanging on to these belief systems for dear life, right? Even just the belief my partner is unsupportive, you're benefiting from that in some way. That's what I mean by payoff. It means that there's a secret benefit to it, right? And the payoff is typically that as long as you believe that my partner is unsupportive because I want this or I need this and they're not giving it to me. As long as you're sitting in that pool, the unconscious payoff is that you get to continue avoiding doing the work for yourself. You get to continue avoiding getting into action consistently in a meaningful way. You get to continue to play small, right? You get to continue staying in your fear, right? Valuing fear over action. And you get to continue self-victimizing, essentially. That is the secret payoff. So if you find yourself really saying any of these things, that's the place where you want to go next, right? If you're not working with a coach, the only next logical place is, if you're really evaluating these thoughts and beliefs when they pop up, is what's the payoff for me? Like, what do I do? How do I show up when I believe this? When I believe my partner's not supportive, my partner doesn't care, they don't want me to do this thing, you know? The irony of relationships, right, is that like the moment that you stop wanting and needing, meaning that you're energetically putting pressure on your partner to do something, to be some way for you, the moment that you release that pressure valve, they actually give you the thing you want.
It's true.
You know, because you finally step back and give them space to step into the relationship, right? So it's like, it's that push and pull, which is actually a beautiful thing, you know, as you're navigating relationships and as you're utilizing influence and leadership in a loving and compassionate way within the context of an intimate partnership. Right?
But it's such a real thing, right? We talked about this. You said this at the very beginning of this episode. You said you're going to find out very quickly that it's not about changing your significant other or your spouse. It's about you changing you. Mm-hmm. Right. And this is the first step with you changing you is taking personal ownership of your trash, right? Instead of trying to lay on somebody else that they don't understand you or they're not showing up for me or they don't support me. Okay. Did you share your vision for your business or you just said, I'm going to go do this? Well, I mean, I think so. All right. So if you didn't do that, then what are you expecting them to do? Just to follow your lead and into the darkness? Like, all right, these are all things we've addressed on this podcast, right? It is your personal responsibility to show up for you first. And once you do that, you'll be surprised at who else will show up for you because they really understand who you are, who you're becoming, and where you're going. Yeah,
and because you show up so powerfully and so enthusiastically and in such a powerful state of leadership for your mission, right? That it's magnetic. People are like, what are you doing? How can I be a part of it, right? And that's not just clients. It's going to be your spouse too, you know? Yeah, realize that all of those limiting beliefs, those are just your projections, right? So when you think to yourself, you know, I need support and validation and approval from my spouse, then just switch that around. And instead of saying you need that from them, tell yourself that you need that from yourself. Right? You actually do. That's how do you correct that, right? I need support and approval and validation from myself.
You need to escape the opinions, expectations, and objectives of others, right? The only ones that really, really matter are your own, right? As long as they're constructive, right? If you have, you know, bad expectations or bad opinions of yourself, right? You need to figure out where those are coming from because, again, self-victim, self-judgment, no growth comes from those two places, okay? So, but you need to lose those objections, those opinions, and those expectations of other people.
But a lot of that you just mentioned comes from your own personal wounding and emotional baggage, right? So if you're looking at your partner like, I need your approval before I can take action, you probably grew up in a household with parents or caregivers where you felt like, I need your approval before I can take action. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't have their approval before you took action, you probably had some negative consequence as a child, right? So you're still stuck in that same type of archetype that you grew up with, right? So it's time to heal that wound, that emotional baggage that's leading you to the place where you're showing up now in your relationship in an approval and validation seeking way, because it's not only keeping you in inaction, but again, it's depolarizing you because it's extraordinarily unattractive to your partner. Doesn't matter if you're the man or woman in the relationship, seeking validation and approval from your partner is unattractive.
Absolutely. Yeah, stop seeking approval from other people. The only approval you need is your own. And instead, ask for support, right? Because that's really what you want, right? And a good partner is going to provide that to you, right? You don't need anybody else's approval to do shit, right? I will literally say, I don't need your approval. I would love your support, though.
Start to experience more gratitude towards your partner. You know, typically our partners are the only ones who we're close enough that will actually honestly and effectively mirror back at us what we need to see in order to be able to correct course, right? A lot of people miss this one. You know, relationships are such a gift because they actually give you the opportunity to see yourself reflected back at yourself. And my friend, if you don't like what you see, it's you.
Everybody's like, well, why is he or she treating me this way or talking to me that way? Well, when was the last time that you spoke to them in that manner? And they go, oh, wait a minute. So you're going to it's very, very simple. You're going to get what you're giving, right? And like you said, it is a mirror. And if you want more love, care, devotion, support, you better give those things, right? Stop treating your partner in what I refer to as a whoring type of love, where I'm only going to give you what you want after you give me what I want, okay? That is not going to go anywhere. So if you want to get more love, affection, devotion, time, then start giving those things of yourself first.
Start over communicating with your partner, start getting clear about your mission and vision, bring them into the vision, right? That is a collaborative conversation. There's something called future visioning. You can have that conversation with your partner, right? This is how I see myself fitting into your life. Does that match with what you want? Do you see me fitting into your life in this way? Do you see us progressing down this way, this path, this lifestyle? What is it, like having the opportunity to have that conversation not only can be incredibly bonding, but it can really help you clarify, and give you peace of mind that you're both headed in the same direction.
We're going to mention this like we do on every episode, but it is imperative that you work with somebody who can help you go to the place that you desire to go. And people tell me all the time, I don't need this mindset stuff. I don't need coaching. Okay, well, the top entrepreneurs, business owners, actors, executives, you name it, these people have coaches. Yeah. These people pay for someone else to help them navigate life, relationships, their work. They pay people to do this. So if the most powerful people are paying coaches to help them navigate their mindset, their relationships, their business, are you that bold to think that you couldn't benefit from that? Right? And so you have two coaches right here that are more willing to help on the business side and on relationship side. You can connect with us at www.edgyentrepreneurs.com. And we have blogs up for you to read. We talk about a lot of these relationship dynamics, a lot of business dynamics. And what we represent is a way for you to maximize your life, your relationships, and your business, right? And that's the whole goal of this podcast. So I hope that this episode has given you guys some really great ideas about how you can, one, be a more supportive partner, and two, get the support from your partner that you so desire.
I want to invite everybody to continue to come back to listen, as we continue talking about relationships, really from maybe what you might consider to be an unconventional or uncommon perspective on relationships. It's definitely not the mainstream of what's out there, so if you really want to start to dig into some of the relationship work and from the perspective that relationships are really the most fundamental and critically important part of your life and your personal performance.
Thanks, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well, and we look forward to you listening in next episode. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.